The quality of your life is not determined by the circumstances you face. No, it's determined by the choices you make and the people you surround yourself with. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but that's easier said than done. And you are right. It's not always easy. In fact, it can be downright challenging. What's the alternative? Staying stuck in toxic relationships that drain your energy, crush your spirit, and hold you back from becoming the person you are meant to be. Life is too short and too valuable to waste on people who don't value you. It's too precious to spend your days trying to please those who will never be satisfied, no matter what you do. It's too important to let others manipulate your thoughts, actions, and dreams for their own selfish gains. Let me share a little story with you. Years ago, I knew a young man, his name Tom. Tom was bright, hardworking, and full of potential. But there was one problem. He was surrounded by what I call energy vampires. These were people who constantly lied to him, disrespected his efforts, and used his kindness for their own advantage. Tom would come up with great ideas for his business, and these so-called friends would shoot them down, telling him he was not good enough. He would achieve a milestone, and they would downplay it, making him feel small. He would offer help, and they would take advantage, never reciprocating when he needed support. For years, Tom struggled. His business floundered, his confidence plummeted, and his dreams seemed to slip further and further away. Why? Because he was investing his time, energy, and resources in the wrong people. But here's the turning point. One day, Tom had an epiphany. He realized that he had the power to choose his associations. He understood that by continuing to surround himself with these toxic individuals, he was essentially choosing to limit his own potential. So what did Tom do? He made the tough but necessary decision to distance himself from these negative influences. It was not easy. There were moments of doubt, feelings of guilt, and periods of loneliness. But Tom persevered. And you know what happened? His life began to transform. Without the constant barrage of lies and disrespect, Tom's confidence grew. Without manipulative people using him, he had more time and energy to focus on his goals. His business started to thrive, his relationships improved, and he finally began to live the life he had always dreamed of. Now, I'm not telling you this story to suggest that distancing yourself from toxic people is a magic solution that will instantly solve all your problems. Life doesn't work that way. But what I am saying is that it's a critical step in creating the life you desire and deserve. We become like the people we spend the most time with. It's what I call the law of association. If you hang around 5 confident people, you will become the 6th. If you hang around 5 intelligent people, you will become the 6th. But the opposite is also true. If you hang around 5 liars, you will become the 6th. If you hang around 5 people who disrespect others, you will likely become the 6th. This is why it's so crucial to be intentional about who you allow into your inner circle. You need to guard the doorway to your mind, your heart, and your life with vigilance, because the influences you allow will shape your thoughts, your beliefs, and ultimately your actions. Now, I can already hear some of you saying, but what if these toxic people are family members? What if they are longtime friends? What if they are coworkers I can't avoid? These are valid concerns, and I understand that life is not always black and white. Sometimes we can't completely cut people out of our lives, but we can still set boundaries and limit our exposure to their negative influence. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. If you consistently accept lies, disrespect, and manipulation, you are sending a message that this behavior is okay. But when you stand up for yourself, when you refuse to engage with toxicity, when you distance yourself from harmful relationships, you are not just protecting yourself. You are also setting a standard for how you expect to be treated. Break this down a bit further. First, lies. Honesty is the foundation of any healthy relationship, whether it's personal or professional. When someone consistently lies to you, they are not just distorting the truth, they are eroding trust. And without trust, what do we have? I once heard a story about the businessman who had a partner who constantly lied about their company's finances. At first he tried to rationalize it, thinking, oh, he's just being optimistic. But as time went on, these lies began to pile up, creating a house of cards that eventually came crashing down, nearly bankrupting the company. The lesson here is clear. Don't ignore red flags when it comes to honesty. If someone repeatedly lies to you, it's a sign that they don't respect you enough to tell you the truth. It's a sign that they value their own interest above the integrity of your relationship. And that's not someone you want in your inner circle. Now move on to disrespect. Respect is like air. You don't notice it until it's not there. But once it's gone, nothing else matters. When someone consistently disrespects you, they are sending a clear message about how little they value you. I remember a young woman I met at a seminar once. She was brilliant, driven, and had big dreams. But she was in a relationship with someone who constantly belittled her ambitions, mocked her efforts, and dismissed her achievements. She would come home excited about a new opportunity, only to have her partner roll their eyes and say, "Yeah, right, like you could ever do that." Day after day, week after week, this disrespect chipped away at her confidence, her motivation, and her sense of self-worth. It was not until she gathered the courage to end that relationship that she truly began to flourish. Disrespect is like poison. It seeps into your mind, contaminating your thoughts, making you doubt yourself. And if you allow it to continue, it can paralyze you, keeping you stuck in a life that's far below your potential. Lastly, who use you. These are perhaps the most insidious of all because they often disguise their manipulation as friendship or love. They are the ones who are always there when they need something from you, but mysteriously absent when you need support. I once knew a man who prided himself on being a good friend. He was always ready to lend money, offer a helping hand, or provide emotional support. But he began to notice a pattern. Certain friends only reached out when they needed something. They would shower him with compliments and promises of future favors, only to disappear once they got what they wanted. This man was being used, plain and simple. His generosity was being exploited by people who saw him not as a friend, but as a resource to be drained. It took him a while to realize it. But when he did, he made the difficult but necessary decision to distance himself from these users. Now, I want to be clear about something. Distancing yourself from toxic people doesn't mean you stop caring about them. It doesn't mean you wish them ill. It simply means you are prioritizing your own well-being and growth. It means you are choosing to invest your time and energy in relationships that are mutually beneficial, respectful, and honest. On an airplane, they always tell you to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. Why? Because if you run out of oxygen yourself, you can't help anyone else. The same principle applies in life. You need to take care of your own emotional and mental well-being before you can truly be there for others. So, how do you start this process of distancing yourself from toxic people? It begins with awareness. Start paying attention to how you feel after interacting with different people in your life. Do you feel energized and inspired, or drained and discouraged? Do you feel respected and valued, or used and taken for granted? Do you trust what they say, or do you find yourself constantly second-guessing their words? Once you have identified the toxic influences in your life, the next step is to set clear boundaries. This might mean limiting the time you spend with certain people. It might mean being more assertive about what you will and won't accept in terms of behavior. It might even mean completely cutting ties in some cases. Remember, setting boundaries is not selfish, it's self-care. It's not about punishing the other person. It's about protecting your own peace of mind and creating space for positive growth in your life. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but won't I be lonely if I distance myself from these people? It's a valid concern. It's better to be temporarily lonely than permanently miserable. Besides, when you create space in your life by removing toxic influences, you're also creating room for new, positive relationships to enter. It's like cleaning out your closet. At first, it might look a bit empty, but that empty space allows you to fill it with clothes that truly fit you, that make you feel good, that serve a purpose in your life. The same is true with relationships. When you distance yourself from those who lie, disrespect, and use you, you are making room for honest, respectful, and mutually supportive relationships to come into your life. Let me share another story with you. There was once a young entrepreneur who was part of a close-knit group of friends. They would known each other since college, and he valued their friendship deeply. But as he started to build his business, he noticed something troubling. Whenever he shared his dreams and goals, his friends would laugh it off, telling him he was reaching too high. Whenever he achieved a milestone, they would downplay it, sometimes even suggesting he would just gotten lucky. At first, he tried to brush it off, telling himself they were just joking around. But as time went on, he realized their words were affecting him. He started doubting himself, second-guessing his decisions, holding back from opportunities because their voices echoed in his head, telling him he was not good enough. It was a tough realization, but he finally understood that his friend's behavior was not just harmless teasing. It was toxic. They were projecting their own fears and insecurities onto him, trying to keep him at their level because his success made them uncomfortable. Making the decision to distance himself from this group was one of the hardest things he would ever done. These were his oldest friends, people he would shared countless memories with. But he knew that if he wanted to grow, if he wanted to reach his full potential, he needed to surround himself with people who would lift him up, not tear him down. So he started attending networking events in his industry. He joined mastermind groups with other ambitious entrepreneurs. He sought out mentors who had achieved the kind of success he aspired to. And you know what happened? His business began to thrive. His confidence soared. He started achieving goals he once thought were impossible. But here's the really interesting part. As he grew and achieved more success, he found that some of his old friends started to change too. Seeing his progress inspired a few of them to chase their own dreams. The dynamics of their relationships shifted. Instead of tearing each other down, they began to support and encourage one another. This story illustrates an important point. Sometimes distancing yourself from toxic people doesn't just benefit you, it can also serve as a wake-up call for them. Your growth and success can inspire others to reflect on their own behavior and make positive changes in their lives. When you've been lied to, disrespected, or used by someone, it's natural to feel hurt, angry, even resentful. These are valid emotions, and it's important to acknowledge them. But holding on to these negative feelings can be like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. It only hurts you in the long run. Forgiveness doesn't mean you condone what was done to you. It doesn't mean you have to let that person back into your life. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the burden of negative emotions, about choosing to move forward unburdened by the weight of past. I once met a woman who had been betrayed by her business partner. This partner had lied about the company's finances, embezzled funds, and nearly driven the business into the ground. The woman was understandably devastated and angry. She spent months fighting a legal battle, consumed by thoughts of revenge. But one day she had an epiphany. She realized that all this anger and resentment was holding her back from moving forward with her life. It was keeping her stuck in the past, preventing her from focusing on rebuilding her business and pursuing new opportunities. So she made a conscious decision to forgive her former partner. Not for their sake, but for her own peace of mind. She did not forget what had happened, and she certainly did not invite this person back into her life. But she chose to let go of the anger and resentment to stop giving this person power over her emotions. The result? She felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She was able to refocus her energy on positive goals, and her business not only recovered, but grew beyond what it had been before. By choosing forgiveness, she freed herself to move forward and thrive. This brings us to another important point. Resilience, distancing yourself from toxic people and situations, requires strength and resilience. It's not always an easy path. There will be moments of doubt, times when you miss the familiarity of old relationships, even if they weren't healthy. There might be people who don't understand your decision, who pressure you to maintain the status quo. But here's the thing about resilience. It's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. Every time you stand up for yourself, every time you choose self-respect over toxic relationships, every time you prioritize your well-being, you are building that resilience muscle. Resilience is one of the most valuable traits you can develop in life. It's what allows you to bounce back from setbacks, to keep pushing forward when things get tough, to turn obstacles into opportunities. I'm reminded of a story about a young athlete I once knew. He was talented, dedicated, and had dreams of going pro. But he had a coach who constantly berated him, who used fear and intimidation as motivation techniques. This coach would tell him he was worthless, that he would never make it, that he should just give up. For a while, the young athlete internalized these messages. His performance suffered, his love for the sport began to wane, and he started to believe that maybe he was not good enough after all. But then, something remarkable happened. He found the courage to stand up to his coach, to distance himself from this toxic influence. It was not easy. He had to switch teams, which meant leaving behind teammates he would bonded with. He had to adapt to a new training regimen. There were moments when he wondered if he would made the right choice, but he persevered. Under the guidance of a new coach who believed in positive reinforcement and respect, this young athlete flourished. Not only did his performance improve dramatically, but he rediscovered his passion for the sport. He went on to have a successful career, achieving goals that once seemed impossible. This story illustrates the transformative power of distancing yourself from toxic influences and surrounding yourself with positivity. It shows how resilience, coupled with the courage to make difficult decisions, can lead to extraordinary results. Self-reflection. While it's crucial to recognize toxic behavior in others, it's equally important to look inward and examine our own behavior. Are there ways in which we might be lying to ourselves? Are there areas in our lives where we are not showing ourselves the respect we deserve? Are we using others or allowing ourselves to be used? Self-reflection is not always comfortable, but it's necessary for personal growth. It's about being honest with yourself, about acknowledging your own flaws and areas for improvement. Because here's the truth. The way we treat ourselves sets the standard for how we allow others to treat us. If we are constantly putting ourselves down, ignoring our own needs, or compromising our values, we are sending a message to the world about what we think we deserve. And often, the world responds accordingly. I once knew a successful businessman who seemed to have it all, a thriving company, a beautiful family, wealth, and status. But he was constantly stressed, always on edge, never truly satisfied. When he finally took the time to reflect, he realized that he had been lying to himself for years. He had convinced himself that he needed to work 80-hour weeks to be successful, that he needed to sacrifice his health and relationships for his business. He had been disrespecting his own needs for balance and fulfillment. And in doing so, he had created a life that looked good on paper but left him feeling empty and unfulfilled. This realization was a wake-up call. He understood that he had been his own worst enemy, perpetuating a cycle of self-neglect and dissatisfaction. So, he made a bold decision. He started setting boundaries in his work life, delegating more responsibilities, and making time for his family and his own well-being. At first, he feared his business would suffer, but something remarkable happened. As he began to respect his own needs and live a more balanced life, he found that his productivity actually increased. His relationships improved, his stress levels decreased, and for the first time in years, he felt truly successful, not just financially, but in all areas of his life. The story illustrates an essential truth. The relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. If you lie to yourself, disrespect your own needs, or allow yourself to be used, you are creating a pattern that others will follow. But when you treat yourself with honesty, respect, and care, you teach others to do the same. Every day, every moment, we have the power to choose. We choose our thoughts, our actions, and yes, our associations. This power of choice is one of the most profound gifts we have as human beings, but it's also one of the most overlooked. Many people go through life feeling like victims of circumstance, believing they have no control over their situations or relationships. But I'm here to tell you, my friends, that this simply is not true. You always have a choice. You may not be able to control everything that happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. Imagine you are on a boat in the middle of the ocean. You can't control the wind or the waves, but you can control the direction of your sail. In the same way, you can't control other people's actions or words, but you can control how you react to them and whether you allow them to remain in your life. This brings us to an important point, taking responsibility for your life. It's easy to blame others for our unhappiness or lack of success. It's easy to point fingers at the liars, the disrespectful people, the users in our lives and say, it's their fault. I'm not where I want to be. But the moment you do that, you give away your power. Taking responsibility means acknowledging that while others may have influenced your life, ultimately, you are the author of your own story. You have the pen in your hand. You decide what to write on the pages of your life. I once met a young woman at a seminar who had a profound realization about this. She had grown up in a household where negativity was the norm. Her parents constantly criticized her, her siblings belittled her dreams, and she had internalized the belief that she was not good enough. For years, she blamed her family for her lack of confidence and her inability to pursue her goals. But during our discussion, she had an epiphany. She realized that while she couldn't change her past or control her family's behavior, she could choose how to move forward. She could choose to distance herself from their negative influence. She could choose to surround herself with supportive people. She could choose to believe in herself despite what she had been told growing up. This realization was transformative for her. It was not easy. Breaking free from long-established patterns rarely is. But by taking responsibility for her life and her choices, she began to rewrite her story. She went back to school, started a business, and created a life that aligned with her values and aspirations. Now, let's address something that often comes up when we talk about distancing ourselves from toxic people: guilt. Many of us, especially those who are naturally empathetic and caring, feel guilty about setting boundaries or limiting contact with certain individuals, even when those people are clearly harmful to our well-being. Guilt is often a misplaced emotion in these situations. You are not responsible for other people's happiness or well-being at the expense of your own. You are not obligated to maintain relationships that drain you, disrespect you, or hold you back from your potential. If you were on a sinking ship, would you feel guilty about getting into a lifeboat? Of course not. You would understand that you need to save yourself before you can help anyone else. The same principle applies here. By taking care of your own emotional and mental well-being, by distancing yourself from toxic influences, you are not being selfish. You are ensuring that you are in the best possible position to live your best life and positively impact others. I remember a conversation I had with a man who was struggling with this very issue. He had a friend who was constantly negative, who criticized every positive step this man took in his life. Yet he felt guilty about the idea of ending the friendship because they had known each other since childhood. I asked him a simple question: if you met this person today, knowing how they treat you, would you choose to be friends with them? His answer was a resounding no. This question helped him realize that he was holding on to the relationship out of a sense of obligation and nostalgia, not because it was adding value to his life. Once he understood this, he was able to start setting boundaries without guilt. He limited his interactions with this friend and started investing more time in relationships that were supportive and positive. The result? He felt lighter, more confident, and more excited about his future. This brings us to another crucial point: the importance of self-value. Knowing your worth is fundamental to creating a life free from toxic influences. When you truly value yourself, you naturally gravitate towards people and situations that align with that value. You become less tolerant of disrespect, less susceptible to manipulation, and more attuned to honesty and authenticity. But self-value is not something that just happens. It's something you need to cultivate consciously. It starts with self-awareness, understanding your strengths, acknowledging your weaknesses, and accepting yourself fully. It involves setting personal standards and sticking to them even when it's difficult. It means celebrating your achievements, learning from your mistakes, and constantly striving to grow and improve. I once worked with an executive who struggled with self-value. He was brilliant at his job, but he constantly doubted himself. This lack of self-value made him an easy target for manipulative colleagues who would take credit for his work or use his ideas without acknowledgement. We worked together on building his self-value. He started keeping a journal of his accomplishments. No matter how small, he began to speak up more in meetings, owning his ideas and contributions. He set clear boundaries with colleagues who had taken advantage of him in the past. The transformation was remarkable. As his self-value grew, so did the respect he commanded from others. Toxic influences naturally fell away as he no longer tolerated behavior that did not align with his worth. His career flourished, and more importantly, he felt a deep sense of personal satisfaction and authenticity. Now, talk about something that's crucial in this process of distancing yourself from toxic influences: building a support system. As you start to set boundaries and distance yourself from negative people, it's essential to have a network of positive, supportive individuals around you. These are the people who believe in you, who encourage your growth, who celebrate your successes and support you through your challenges. They are the ones who tell you the truth, even when it's hard to hear, because they genuinely want the best. Building this support system doesn't happen overnight. It requires intention and effort. It might mean joining clubs or groups aligned with your interests, attending networking events, or reaching out to like-minded individuals in your industry. It could involve rekindling old friendships that were positive or nurturing new relationships with people who inspire you. I recall a conversation with a young entrepreneur who was struggling to break free from a circle of friends who constantly discouraged her ambitions. She felt stuck, knowing she needed to distance herself from these negative influences, but fearing the loneliness that might follow. We worked on a strategy for her to gradually build a new support system. She started attending industry meetups, joined a mastermind group for entrepreneurs, and even started a book club focused on personal development. Slowly but surely, she began to form connections with people who shared her drive and positivity. The impact was profound. Not only did she find the strength to distance herself from her discouraging friends, but she also found herself surrounded by individuals who pushed her to grow, who offered valuable advice and connections, and who genuinely celebrated her successes. Experience taught her an invaluable lesson. The quality of your life is directly influenced by the quality of your relationships. By consciously choosing to surround herself with positive, supportive people, she created an environment conducive to her personal and professional growth. A common concern that arises when we talk about distancing ourselves from toxic people: the fear of confrontation. Many of us avoid setting boundaries or distancing ourselves from negative influences because we are afraid of the potential conflict it might create. Confrontation doesn't have to be aggressive or hostile. In fact, the most effective confrontations are often calm, clear, and compassionate. It's about expressing your needs and boundaries respectfully while also being firm in your resolve. I once worked with a teacher who was dealing with a toxic coworker. This coworker constantly belittled her ideas in staff meetings and spread rumors about her to other teachers. For months, she avoided confronting the issue, fearing it would make the situation worse. We worked on a strategy for her to address the problem assertively, yet respectfully. She scheduled a private meeting with her coworker, clearly expressed how the behavior was affecting her, and set clear boundaries for future interactions. She remained calm and professional throughout the conversation, focusing on the behavior rather than making personal attacks. The result? While the coworker was initially defensive, the clear, non-aggressive approach ultimately led to a mutual understanding. The toxic behavior decreased significantly, and the work environment improved, not just for her, but for the entire team. This experience taught her that confrontation, when done right, can be a powerful tool for positive change. It's not about winning an argument or proving someone wrong. It's about standing up for yourself and creating healthier relationships and environment. I want to touch on a vital point: the importance of continual growth and self-improvement. Distancing yourself from toxic influences is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process of evaluation and action. As you grow and evolve, your tolerance for certain behaviors may change. What you once accepted might become unacceptable as you gain a clearer understanding of your worth and your goals. This is a good thing. It means you are developing, raising your standards, and becoming more aligned with your true self. But it also means that you need to stay vigilant. Regularly assess your relationships and environments. Are they still serving your growth? Are they aligned with your values and aspirations? If not, be willing to make changes, to distance yourself from what no longer fits, and to seek out what will support your continued development. I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a successful author. He told me that every few years, he does a life audit. He examines every aspect of his life, his relationships, his work, his habits, his goals, and asks himself, is this still serving me? Is this helping me become the person I want to be? This practice has allowed him to consistently shed what no longer serves him and embrace new opportunities for growth. It's helped him distance himself from toxic influences before they can take root. And it's guided him towards relationships and experiences that enrich his life and work. You are the architect of your life. You have the power to design your environment, to choose your associations, to set your standards. Don't let anyone else hold the blueprint to your life. Distancing yourself from people who lie to you, disrespect you, and use you is not just about removing negativity from your life. It's about making room for positivity, growth, and authentic connections. It's about creating a life that resonates with your true self, a life that excites you, challenges you, and fulfills you. Remember, every day is a new opportunity to make choices that align with your worth and your aspirations. Every interaction is a chance to reinforce your boundaries and your values. Every challenge is an invitation to grow stronger and more resilient. So, my friends, I encourage you to take a good, honest look at your life. Identify the toxic influences that are holding you back. Have the courage to distance yourself from them even when it's difficult. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, who support your growth, who inspire you to become the best version of yourself. Your life is too precious, your potential too great to waste on relationships that drain you rather than fill you up. You deserve honesty, respect, and genuine support. Don't settle for less. As you leave here today, I want you to make a commitment to yourself. Commit to valuing yourself enough to walk away from anything that no longer serves you, grows you, or makes you happy. Commit to creating a life filled with positive influences, authentic relationships, and opportunities for growth. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Your journey to a life free from toxic influences starts now, with the choices you make today. Trust in yourself, believe in your worth, and have the courage to create the life you truly desire and deserve. Thank you.